Chapter 2, Consonantal and Vocalic, Yod Vav, and the Syllable. And so if you would, turn to Chapter 2 and look at Section 2. And of course the problem we have here is the Yod and the Vav. Sometimes they can be a consonant, sometimes they can be a vowel. And in order for us to pronounce Hebrew properly, when we look at a Yod or a Vav, we've got to know the difference of whether we're looking at a consonant or a vowel. And so the first part of this chapter is really concerned with that issue. So let's look again at 2.2. And the first thing I want to do is look at Yod and look at it when it's a vowel. And so let me write a word. And the first thing we want to do is when we're looking at a vowel, if that Yod is a vowel, there can't be any vowel written under it or to the left of it. No vowel below it or to the left of it anywhere. And so that's the first thing. With a Yod, if it's going to be a vowel, you cannot have a vowel below it or to the left of it. And then it must be preceded, the Yod must be preceded here by either a Hirik, Sereh, or Sagol. And so if the Yod is preceded by a Hirik, Sereh, or Sagol, then you have a vowel. This Yod is part of a vowel combination, Sereh Yod. Okay, and so you can see the examples that I give you. You have Beit, then you have Navi. When you look at Navi, you can see again in this example here you have a Yod. Below the Yod there is no vowel, and to the left of the Yod there is no vowel. And the Yod is preceded by a Hirik, Sereh, Sagol. That makes this a vowel combination known as Hirik Yod. Okay, next if it's a consonant. If you have, notice number one, if the Yod begins a word, it has to be consonantal. And so if you have a Yod at the beginning of a word like this, then this Yod here is clearly a consonant, and notice there's a vowel below it. The next one, number two, if the Yod has a dot in it. So if your Yod has a dot in it, as you see here, it has a dot in it. And if the Yod has a dot, it's automatically a consonant. Notice here, in this example, it's preceded by a patach. And also there's a vowel underneath the Yod at the same time. Number three, if the Yod has a vowel, and that's what you can see in this example here. The Yod has a vowel under it. And therefore, again, this Yod has to be consonantal. And then finally, if the Yod is preceded by some other vowel other than a Hirik or a Sereh or Sagol, then again it's a consonant. And so the example I give you is this word here. Here you have the Yod, and it's not preceded by a Hirik, Sereh, or Sagol. It's preceded by a Shurik. And therefore this has to be a consonantal Yod. Now the Vav. Well, again, the Vav can be a vowel or a consonant. The first thing we want to look at is a vowel. And so if you have a Vav having a dot in its middle and it begins a word, if you have that type of situation, and so in my example here, you have a Vav. And that Vav has a dot in the middle of it, and it begins the word. If you have this, then what we have here is a vowel, and this would be a Shurik. And by the way, this is the one time in Hebrew when a vowel can begin a word, and that's very rare in Hebrew, but it's common with what we have here. This is what's called a conjunctive Vav. It's the and so that's common, but this is about the only time you're going to see a vowel begin a word in Hebrew. The next one, number two, a Vav having a dot in its middle and preceded by a consonant. And so here we have a Vav. It has a dot in its middle, and it's preceded by a consonant. There's no vowel here. There's no like Hirik here. There's no Holem here. No type of vowel before it. You just have a consonant in front of it. And when you have this situation, then again, this must be read as a Shurik, Sus, is how you would want to read this word. And number 3, a vav having a dot at its top and preceded by a consonant is, again, a vowel. And so in the example here, again, you have a vav with a dot at its top. And again, there's no vowel under here. There's no vowel up here or beside here. This is the vowel. And so again, this would have to be a holem vav, and this would be pronounced tov. Okay. Now for the consonant. It says a vav without a dot in its middle or at its top is a consonant. And so if you just simply have a vav, you have a vav, there's no dot up here, and there's no dot in the middle of it, so nor at the top nor in the middle. When you have that situation, the vav has to be a consonant. And so this is a consonant, and so you pronounce this as a V this time, not as a vowel sound. And number 2, a vav having a dot in its middle or at its top and preceded by a vowel or a schwa, that vav is a consonant. And so let's look at an example of that. Again, the same word. Okay, what we have here is we have a vav, and we have a dot in its middle. But it's preceded by a vowel here. Therefore, since this letter already has a vowel, remember in Hebrew we do not allow 2 vowels back to back very often. That's fairly rare in Hebrew. And so we don't like this type of situation. What we have to see is this is the vowel for this consonant here. And so what we're looking at here is a consonant, not a vowel. And so that's what we have here. And then we have one more example, this time with a schwa. This time we have this situation. Now, how should we look at this holem vav? Is this a vowel, a holem vav, or is this a vav with the holem? Well, the issue is what's under here. If you have a vowel, or if you have a schwa, then we must read this as a consonant. This vav is a consonant, and then this is the vowel to the consonant. So again, this can be a little tricky. This is not a vowel here. This whole holem vav here, really it's not a holem vav. This is not a vowel because it's preceded by the schwa. And so how we want to read this is that this is a consonant here. This is a vav, and that vav has a holem as its vowel. So watch out for that one. That's going to be the tough one for you. But again, watch for that one. Next, the thing we want to talk about is the syllable. And we want to define what a syllable is. And notice what I say in section 3 of chapter 2. A Hebrew syllable must begin with a consonant. And this would include your silent letters, aleph and ayin. And it must have a single vowel. A Hebrew syllable may end with either a consonant or a vowel. But in Hebrew, you've got to begin a syllable with a consonant. And so you can see in my example, I have a word written like bum, like this. And again, you can see how you have a, again, remember we're reading from right to left. And so we will read the consonant here, go down and read the vowel below it, and then read the final consonant, bam. That's the way we're going to read this word. And so in Hebrew, your syllable begins with a consonant always. You're never going to have a situation where you're going to have a vowel over here and then a letter to the left of it, a word starting like this. You can't have a vowel just free floating like this. And of course, if you look in the textbook, a lot of times we'll put a box there, and that would be for any consonant. But here, you can't have a word or a syllable that begins with just a simple vowel. That just cannot be in Hebrew. So in Hebrew, you must begin a consonant with, a syllable with a consonant, as you see in a situation like this. Here we have the silent letter aleph, and then we have the long A below it. We would simply pronounce that ah. We would have no pronunciation for the aleph. You would pronounce the vowel. But again, this is considered that the syllable is beginning with a consonant. Okay, now you need to know what an open and what a closed syllable is. If you have a syllable, and that syllable ends with a vowel, like for instance what I have here. I have a consonant, then I have a vowel. This we would call an open syllable. Again, we have the syllable begins with a consonant, but it ends with a vowel. But you can also, let's take an example like I gave you here, na. Here you have a syllable. It begins with a consonant, and you have this vowel, but then it ends in a final aleph. The final aleph will not close the syllable, and even though you have what looks like a consonant here, and it is a consonant, that consonant, that particular consonant, the aleph, and the hey, neither one of these letters can close a syllable, and therefore you want to see this as an open syllable. A closed syllable, on the other hand, what it does is it ends with a consonant. And so we have a noon, which again begins your syllable. Then you have the shurik, which is your vowel. And now it's ending with a consonant. This is a closed syllable. A closed syllable is a syllable that ends in a consonant. Now again, had that final consonant been an aleph or a hey, it would be an open syllable. So keep that in mind. But again, a closed syllable ends with a consonant. An open syllable ends in a vowel or a final aleph, a final hey. So keep the distinction of closed and open syllable in your mind. And then in section 5, we have dividing words into syllables. We're syllabifying here. And our word that we have here is me adam, like this. Now, when we read Hebrew, of course, we're going to read from right to left. And so we would go from the mem down to the vowel, sereh, then come back to the aleph, which is a silent letter, go down to kametz, then the daled, come down to kametz, and then finally we pronounce the mem at the end. So that's the way we read Hebrew. We go again from right to left. But when we syllabify, we really want to go from left to right. And so when we syllabify, when we cut this word into syllables, we really want to go from left to right. That's the better way of doing it. And so let's do it. What we want to do is we basically want to go and find our vowel and then find the consonant that goes with the vowel, and that's where we're going to cut the syllable. So going backwards from left to right, we start with the mem. Then we go down and we take the vowel, and now we take the consonant that goes with the vowel, and that's where we're going to put our first syllable break. Then again we go down here, we find our vowel and the consonant that goes with it, and again we put our break there. And this is syllabifying. Now we want to label our syllables either opened or closed. We look at the final syllable here, and it ends in a consonant, and the consonant is not a aleph, it's not a hey, and therefore we would call this a closed syllable. When we come to the next syllable, as you're pronouncing it, and when we're pronouncing it we're going this way, you have an aleph and then you have a vowel. So the syllable ends in a vowel. This has to be an open syllable. And then again, when we look at this, we have the consonant, we have a vowel, and again, this has to be seen as an open syllable. So we have two open syllables, the first two here, and then we have a closed syllable at the end. Okay, let's look at another example of syllabifying. We'll look at the word safer. And again, you can see the accent mark we put there. Okay. First thing we want to do is we want to go backwards. We want to go from left to right when we syllabify. So we have a consonant. When we come under here, we have a vowel and we have a consonant. So remember, a consonant has to begin the syllable. So we're going to put our break here. And so this is like fair. You'd say the F or the pay, and the segold and the resh. And then we have another syllable here with the sereh and then the samik. Again, the final syllable would be considered closed because it ends in this consonant resh. The first syllable on the other hand, is open because it ends here with the sere. One more example, and that is this word here, safa. Shafa, excuse me. Here's the word, and so we have a consonant vowel. There's its consonant. We've got to divide here. Now we have another vowel, and we have a consonant. Now here, we have a syllable that ends in a consonant, but that consonant being a hey, or if it were an aleph. Either way, this has to be considered open. So again, this is considered an open syllable because, again, it ends in a hey, or if it ended in an aleph, it would be the same thing. And then this is also, the first syllable is also an open syllable because it ends with a kametz, as you see right there. All right, so it's very important that you know how to syllabify, to break words into syllables. And even though we're going to pronounce Hebrew from right to left, we're going to syllabify from left to right. So keep that in mind. The next issue that we need to talk about is the idea of accent. And I've already showed you the accent mark that we're going to use. It's a little mark like you see here above the samic. That will be an indicator of accent. Now, if the accent is going to be on the last syllable of the word, which that's true in probably 80–90% or more of cases in Hebrew, there would be no accent mark given at all. So if you had a word like this, where there is no accent mark given in my textbook, you know the accent would be on the last syllable. Say fair would be the way to pronounce it. But if the accent's going to be on the next to last syllable, you'll get a accent mark like this, and you're supposed to pronounce this sefer, which again is the correct way. Now in Hebrew, you can only accent the last or next to last syllable. You cannot accent the one before the next to last. So if you're thinking of, again, Greek terminology, you can accent the ultima, you can accent the penult, but you cannot accent, in Hebrew now, the antepenult, which again you can in Greek. So you want to keep that in mind as you're looking at accent. And finally, you need to see section 7 of chapter 2, the terminology about accent. The accented syllable we're going to call the tone syllable, the accented syllable. Sometimes we'll talk about stress. Those terms, stress, accent, and tone, they're all interchangeable terms to refer to the accented syllable. The syllable before the tone or accented syllable will be called the pretonic syllable. And the syllable before that, obviously, we'll call propretonic syllable. And as you keep going, we just keep calling them propretonic syllables. Obviously, if you have a syllable that comes after the accent, we'll call that a posttonic syllable. And so again, in 2.7, I give you the example of a word that looks like this. Notice there's no accent mark on this word, so your accent's going to be on the final syllable. And again, if you were to syllabify, you would basically just break it like this. And this would be your tone syllable, the stress syllable, or the accented syllable. This syllable here would be your pretonic, and then this is a propretonic syllable, and this is another propretonic syllable. And so again, you need to know that terminology when we talk about what type of syllable we're looking at, whether it's posttonic, tonic, pretonic, or propretonic. You need to know those terms. Now it's time for you to do the questions, the vocabulary, and the drills of Chapter 2.